I'm really pleased today to welcome three of our experts who are going to be answering your questions. So we've got David Wilkes, Dave Pankhurst, and all the way from Dallas, Texas, where it's 7:45 in the morning, we've got Adam Shink as well. So welcome, guys. So if any of you would like to ask a question, you can do so by clicking the Q&A button at the bottom of the page and typing your question into there. So just while you're having a chance to have a think, I'm just going to ask each of the panelists to really briefly introduce themselves and tell us just a little bit more about what they do. So David, can I ask you to go first, please?
Okay, my name is David Wilkes. I started BT 100 years ago as an apprentice, and my sins now I'm working in applied research in the Internet of Things team, where we're looking at all sorts of connected devices, and I'm heading up the research into drones and all the exciting stuff that we're doing in BT. So it's not really a job, it's fun.
Lovely, thanks, David. Dave, can you go next, please?
So yeah, hi everyone. So I'm Dave Pankhurst. I run the drone solutions team within BT. I joined BT not quite 100 years ago, probably about 5 years ago. Before that, I was in EE and Orange, and I joined Orange through the graduate scheme, essentially. And yeah, and much like David, sometimes it doesn't quite feel like a job, but nonetheless it is.
That's lovely. Thank you, Dave. And finally, Adam, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Sure. So Adam Shink, I'm sure you noticed Dave has all the toys in the background. So yeah, we get to have lots of fun at BT. So Adam Shink, Senior Manager of External Innovation for BT. Worked a lot within the drone space. I've actually taken on a new role heading up our scouting for new technologies over in the US. But while I was with Dave and the team there, I launched a new division for BT. I'm really focused on the kind of backbone technology of allowing drones to really do everything that we want them to do, flying really long distances in a safe manner. So I spent a lot of time incubating that. Similar to Dave Pankhurst, I went through a graduate scheme, not within the telecommunications industry. I actually came up through the energy sector. But you're seeing a lot of really interesting kind of cross-pollination between these sectors. So Dave Pankhurst actually brought me into the company about 3 years ago.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, guys. And we've already got some questions rolling in, so I'm going to kick straight off. First question, I'm actually going to put two together here. So how high and far can drones fly, and how much can a drone carry? Would any of you like to come in on that one?
Go on, I'll take this one. How high can they go? Pretty much as high as possible with the atmosphere. They rely on propellers, so they need atmosphere to actually go, so they can go very high. How far can they go? They can go a long way, and that's dependent on communications. Then you have the legalities of it. In the UK, we're only allowed to go to 400 feet, and we're only allowed to go 500 meters. But they're the kind of things and challenges that we're actually trying to change by making these systems smart enough to fly themselves. It's all about safety and pushing the boundaries.
And maybe just like to add on to that one too, battery power as well. So batteries are definitely coming a lot further with the likes of Tesla, investing such huge amounts in that space. You can currently get about 25 minutes-ish with a drone, depending on what you're carrying. So, as the battery technology also progresses, drones are going to be able to fly a lot longer, carry a lot more weight, etc.
Brilliant. Thanks, guys. And another question I could come in is, can anyone fly a drone?
Well, I can. And Dave can. Yeah, it's the big difference with this is all these radio control airplanes that you see behind me. 10 years ago, if you took your eyes off it or let go of the sticks, it would crash and that would be it. It'd be gone. And you could only fly it if you could see it. But technology, I mean, the sophistication inside these tiny little drones is crazy. These things fly themselves. They stabilize themselves. You can fly this around the house, and I've had grandmothers flying this around the house. Really simple to fly, super safe with all the buffers on it, and you can pick them up for about £20 on Amazon. So if you want to do it, go do it.
Okay, lovely. I should just say there are other retailers of drones are available.
Oh yes.
Yeah, if I can fly a drone, anyone can. I'll put it that way. So yeah.
Brilliant. Okay, so and a question just kind of that leads on from that, that in the long term, what does the use of drones look like? Will they be fully automated and able to fly themselves?
Should
You want to take that, Dave?
Yeah, so I mean, yes, I think they will be able to. So really, really intelligent people building brilliant technology to make that be true. I think going back to what David mentioned, you still need to work out the rules and regulations and all that kind of stuff about when that's possible and by which way. But what I would say as well is that doesn't mean that will be the only way drones will be flown. People will still fly drones. You'll still have piloted drones, but there'll be a blend. And a lot of things that people are doing today with drones will become automated, but there will still be a really active and vibrant community flying drones, and certain situations will require a pilot essentially. But yeah, there'll be a lot. But I mean, Adam, if you maybe want to talk about some of the use cases or something. Or...
Yeah, like I think the really interesting thing now is, the drone hardware. Dave Wilkes loves drone hardware, but it's relatively developed now. The innovation happening in that space will continue, but a lot of the smarts that's going on within the drone space is the automation. And one of the really kind of interesting use cases is these drone in a box solutions. So it's pretty easy to kind of think about this. It's a box that contains a drone. It's got kind of doors on the top of it that open up, and the drone flies out and it does an autonomous mission. So it could be everything from doing a security mission. So it could fly around, a security site, looking for anyone trying to break in. It could fly out and maybe do, a bunch of kilometers along a pipeline. And then once it's done its mission, it's already pre-programmed. So it comes back to that box. It does the data relay, it does the charging. And what's really interesting now is you're starting to see drones that are able to kind of cycle through these boxes. So you could have one that takes off, does its mission, comes back, and does that download, and another one is flying off in another direction to kind of collect that data. So a lot of the innovation is going into the autonomy, both in the software and also the ability for these drones to not collide with things as well.
And just following on from that question, we've got a few questions about kind of negative uses of drones. So you've mentioned a few things there, Adam, which are really, good reasons to use a drone. But can they be used for bad things? And particularly, someone's asked about. We might all remember a few years ago there were some drones flown near an airport in the UK that basically closed the airport. So how do we stop things like that from happening?
If I start, I don't think you can stop bad things from happening. I mean, I know Dave Wilkes has spoken about technology is great. Technology in the wrong hands can always cause a challenge, essentially, and also it's really about making sure that the very few incidents and things that happen don't sort of negatively sort of ruin an entire industry and an entire kind of technology for everyone. It'd be the same as analogy as the internet as such. For some bad things that happen on the internet doesn't mean the internet is an amazing tool that creates huge value across the world. So I think in terms of kind of how you can try and limit those things, you can then look at obviously technologies which try and understand maybe the identity of the drone and certain conditions for when they can be flown, the rules and regulations around it. You can look at certain characteristics, try and understand what good does look like, education, all of those kind of pieces. But a lot of it, hopefully it's just a small amount in the grander sense. But I know, David, you've got more probably thoughts than I have.
Yeah, I mean, they can be used. Any technology can be used in a bad way. But I mean, the big benefits of technology is it can be used in a good way. So what you'll find is they'll be using other technologies to counter people that are doing the bad things. And the denial of airspace at Heathrow and Gatwick, when we had that was down to someone flying a drone around. Now, at the time, they didn't have a way of detecting that drone. They didn't know if it was there or not. And there's lots of conspiracies about that, but the basic factor was they shut the airport for safety. So now we're looking at ways of stopping aircraft going into that airspace and detecting it so that we can actually make a real decision as to whether it can be opened or not. But the use cases, the positive use cases for drones are just massive. There's so many of them.
Thank you. So a couple of questions here to any of you actually. First of all, why are they called drones? And secondly, this is a really good question, which is, can drones operate when it's raining?
Wilkes, you want to take that?
Why are they called drones? They're called remotely piloted aerial systems. They're called unmanned or unpersoned aerial systems, UAVs, UASs, all sorts of things. But the media's decided to call them drones. It's sort of, I think it harks back to sort of drone bees and things like that, and various things. And the word drone is stuck. The Civil Aviation Authority hates it, but that's where we are.
And the rain?
The rain.
Done in the rain, Mr. Wilkes?
Yeah, they're not all waterproof. Some are waterproof. You'll see lots of videos on YouTube where they're flying drones and pouring buckets of water over them. They can fly in the rain. We've got drones that will fly in the rain, and obviously you can't have drones and have good use cases like chasing fire engines and things like that if they don't work when it's raining. So technology is waterproofing these things. So yes, you can.
And that follows into actually another question that we've had about the video from Imperial College that was on the website. Talks about drones going underwater. So you know, will they be able to swim or sail? What other things will they be able to do as well as fly?
I can take that one if you want. Yeah. So I've actually, before coming into BT, I worked for the UK government in robotic technologies that work in the ocean. So robotic submarines, robotic speed boats. So there's all kinds of different use cases for robotics. So that's already happening. And it's, again, completely autonomous. So you program them, they go out. So the UK government uses them for science purposes. So they take these robotic submarines and float underneath ice shelves. But you can use them in commercial senses too. So if you're a BP Shell, you may have subsea infrastructure like cables, any kind of infrastructure that's on the seafloor that you want to go and survey, and you can use drones for that. Prior in my last life, we developed a little micro submarine in light of what happened with the blowout that happened in the Gulf of Mexico for BP. There was a big blowout that happened where oil was seeping from the seafloor and causing a big environmental damage issue. So we were using these submarines to go around and try and figure out where that release was happening. So lots of different use cases.
Oh.
Lovely, thank you. Just a reminder to everyone on the webinar today, if you'd like to ask a question, if you click on the Q&A button and you can type your question in that way. A great question we've got that's just come in is, what would happen when you go outside of the range of a drone? Does it just disconnect and then you have to walk and get a bit closer to it before you can connect to it again? Does it fall out of the sky? What would happen?
Go on, I'll take that one. Yeah, the link that you have is called the command and control link. It's normally a radio control transmitter, which I've not got any to hand. There's one there. And the drone needs that to actually be told what to do. But the way that the technology is working now is most of these drones have all got GPSs in them. They've got barometers, so they know how high they are. So if it loses connection with the transmitter, it knows where it is. It knows where it came from, so it uses the GPS to turn around and go back, and you can get them to return to base, or you can get them just to hover. If you do lose control, or it goes and lands out, you've always got the position, the last known position, and you have an iPhone strapped to the bottom of the transmitter that shows you where it is on the map, so you can actually walk to it. But these are the solutions and problems that we've got to make drones go a long way. Is when you start looking at the transmitter, it becomes a data link. And then if you start thinking about it, if you use mobile phone communications and other communications like new 5G communications, you can spread that and you can basically never go out of range, and you can fly them around in contact all the time.
Brilliant, thank you. And I've got quite a specific question now about a particular way you might use a drone. So could drones be used to potentially monitor carbon dioxide levels in the soil, for example? You'd like to come in on that one?
Well, yeah, they definitely can be used for lots of different applications. I think, it would be the system that would be around that would pick up the data. So drones are really good if you're talking kind of agriculture for heat mapping, so you understand where best to spray pesticides, utilize water, so that you can ensure that you're not using it inappropriately. I think if you were looking at a system like that, you might need sensors that were positioned in the soil that were picking up data, and then the drone could go around and collect that data from that. But drones are really good for things that are on the surface. It could measure emissions from plants. If there's CO2, greenhouse gases being released, methane from plants, it could hover around and actually get an idea where those releases were happening from.
Yeah, it comes down to the sensor. I don't know if there's an aerial sensor that can detect carbon dioxide with sort of photographic methods or anything like that. But you could potentially just land a drone and actually probe into the ground and use a sensor. But if there isn't an aerial sensor for carbon dioxide, that's an opportunity for one of you guys out there to go and invent one.
Excellent. Yeah. That's the challenge of the day from David there. Fantastic. You mentioned quite a number of different ways that drones can be used. So what's BT going to use drones for? Is that a question for you, Dave?
Yeah, maybe a bit of a blend. So we as BT across the community do use drones ourselves. So in the teams that look after our network, either directly within BT or kind of partners that we work with, will use drones in terms of inspection kind of use cases. So really around rather than someone having to climb a mast, as an example, in a dangerous location on a horrible, maybe rainy day, depending on the quality of the drone, but in unsafe conditions, instead of doing that, is it possible to use a drone instead? So drone can fly up, take the images of that, and then potentially stitch them together. You can even do amazing things of creating sort of digital twins of infrastructure. View it on a laptop, see what's changed, see what happened. Can you spot rust? Can you spot a bolt that's come out? And then, if that is the case, then send up someone to fix it, essentially. So just to try and reduce the risk of obviously injury happening. A piece that Adam mentioned there earlier about like the drone in the boxes, it might get to a point where you don't need someone to stand there to fly the drone. The drone can just do it itself once a day or whatever that looks like. But definitely BT are doing brilliant things in that direction. Outside of that then, a little bit aligned to what David said a minute ago about the connectivity and always having, I suppose, connectivity to the drone. We're then looking around how can our mobile network provide great connection to the drones effectively, so that people can either tell the drone what to do, find out where it is, or stream videos, or whether it's someone in a park playing, whether it's going down a hill, whatever it might be, essentially. That's more about the other part of BT, not necessarily using the drone, but how can we provide the technology so that other people can.
Lovely, thank you. And this next question is one I'm definitely going to have to ask all three of you. What's the strangest thing you've ever seen a drone do that you didn't think would work?
Fly.
So, David, are you going to go first with this one?
Yeah. Well, we did an experiment in the centre of London with a 5G drone, and we were looking around as to what we were going to use to transport in this drone, as it was going to fly on the world's first flight by a 5G drone, and we couldn't work out what we were going to put in it. And it happened to be my birthday, so someone bought me a birthday cake, and they put the birthday cake in, and we delivered a birthday cake. So I hold the world record for the first delivery by 5G drone.
Very good, record holder. And Adam, the same question to you.
This is a tricky one. I think going back to, if you remember when I talked about that kind of little small submarine that I developed in my past life for BP, one of the missions that we were flying was attaching that little submarine actually to a drone, and then you could fly out and drop that submarine into, if it was like a big oil spill, again, like out quite far to sea, you could drop the submarine that then is going around and collecting data about that oil spill and where it's going. So that was a really kind of neat mission that we flew.
Lovely. Thanks, Adam. And Dave, how about you? What's the strangest thing you've ever seen a drone do?
The strangest thing I've seen, which I definitely wouldn't suggest anyone on this does, I suppose. I'm sure I saw a video of where someone had proved that you could take a cat to the vet by essentially onto the top of a drone and take it, which again is definitely nothing that I would suggest. I've seen also there was a brilliant video of someone, there was a big like marriage proposal and stuff of someone delivering the wedding ring to people. There's some really lovely things if you search for like fun things that people have done. But yeah, some of them probably come with quite a safety warning, which I'll step back from.
Yeah, we do not condone that type of behavior with drones.
No,
not at all.
Lovely, thanks, guys. And actually, I have got a question that kind of runs on a little bit from Dave's cat example, which is: will we ever see drones as a sort of a feasible alternative to a normal taxi for carrying people?
Yes. And
when do you think that might be?
It's happening now. I mean, these new prototypes are flying around. They are just large drones with lots of resilience. So if anything goes wrong with one of the propellers or anything like that, still safe to fly. They have parachutes on them should anything really badly go wrong. But these are all available. The big beauty of them is they're a lot cheaper than helicopters because they are based on drone technology. They fly themselves. So what you're going to be able to see is very large drones flying around with people in them. And I would imagine people like Uber, which I know they're already looking at, are looking at this technology. It's just a matter of making it safe, making it acceptable, and making it quiet enough to not upset people. But you can appreciate once we start getting people off the roads and getting into cities and just using the airspace, we can free up our cities. So it's going to happen, and I do believe it will quickly.
Yeah.
Quickly on that aside as well, like in terms of, there was a company just last week called Volocopter who are one of the big future providers in this space. So yeah, big vehicles, all everything that David was just mentioning, and they've just had another, I think it's £200 million invested into them. They've already had nearly, I think 300 or nearly £400 million in total already. So it's not just a sort of a visionary, it might happen thing. There's a lot of money going into this, which normally suggests it's coming, essentially.
Lovely. And another one that kind of comes on from that is: how long do you think it will be before drones are used for deliveries even more than delivery trucks and vans are now?
I can take that one. Do you want me to take that one, guys? Yeah.
Yeah.
So for the delivery side, it's a really interesting question. And some of it, again, is going to be personal kind of thoughts around this. I personally think, I mean, delivery is already happening. David Wilkes was doing delivery, 5-6 years ago for BT for some of our spare parts out to remote missions or remote islands. But, I think in terms of the full scale delivery market, I think you'll always have some sort of ground infrastructure. It might be very small trucks on the ground that are autonomous that are doing that kind of final mile. The drone in the air is one piece of this, so it's a whole logistic and transportation question, and a lot of automation is going into that sector. In terms of how drone delivery I see kind of rolling out, it's happening in very remote areas, so very non-risky flights. So if you're thinking about an Amazon, how I perceive how they're going to go about this is they'll have logistic hubs in remote regions, and they'll fly deliveries to that hub that's maybe close to London, let's say, and then you might have manned trucks still doing that mile to your door for the next few years. So I think it is going to be, whole automation within logistics, but, the drones may just be one piece of it. And then you might have other elements that kind of build off of that. But I'm sure the guys have their own kind of thoughts on this too.
Yeah, I mean, there was one big criteria that drones can't actually do. They can't carry very heavy payloads. So if you imagine a van with a ton of Amazon parcels in the back of it, you might need 50-60 drones to carry that same thing. So and the logistics of them landing in your garden is a bit of a problem. But some great examples of where drone delivery is really working. In Rwanda, There's a company called Zipline. They're using drones to fly blood supplies and medical supplies hundreds and hundreds of miles. And I believe last year they did 68% of all their blood deliveries were by drone, which is phenomenal. And we're doing that already in the UK. We're in Scotland. A company that we're working with called Skyports is delivering medical supplies out to the islands. And it's so simple because you don't need a ferry. You just put your medical supplies or your test samples in a drone. The drone just takes off, flies, and the cost of the flight is a few pence for the electricity to charge the batteries. So
wow,
it's happening already.
Sounds like a real game changer, in some
I think to some of Adam's point, I think one of the biggest challenges in terms of, because I think people normally think about the drone coming to your doorstep sort of thing and delivering the thing, is absolutely what David said about the volume of items, I suppose, and the weight. But it's also just the problem of like flats and how would that work, and the security of the item that you're dropping off, and you see some companies, I think it's Google Wing, have done some things where rather than coming down to the door, they almost on a big not a piece of rope, but sort of bring the item down for someone to take it, rather than having to deal with a messy bit on the ground. So I think it's a lovely ideal, but it's almost the reality of it's really difficult. So,
yeah, I mean, one of the things that Adam said, there's the drone in a box piece. I know DHL are doing it. If you can imagine a big shipping container where a drone lands on top of the shipping container, and you go to the shipping container, you tap in a code, you put your parcel into it, that gets loaded up into the drone, and the drone takes off of the box and flies to another box, and then you just go and put your code in to actually get your parcel at the other end, and that separates you from the aerial side of it. So that's already happening in Germany, in the mountains.
Wow, very exciting things to come then, I think. And now you guys have clearly inspired some of the audience today, because our next question is, what skills would I need to have a future career in the field of drones? You'd like to start, because I think you all do very different things, so you probably all have slightly different answers to this one.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, I suppose it's a whole industry sort of thing. So I mean, myself, I'm not from a kind of engineering drone background. I'm more in kind of business kind of strategy, marketing, all of that kind of stuff, I suppose. But there's, prior to joining this session, I was on the phone to a lawyer who supports us, who's helping us understand the regulation in the drone space, I suppose, and managing contracts. So that's not, and he's having to now learn about drones and the industry and everything like that. So it's so diverse, essentially, that it's when David then was talking about, you've got DHL, so logistics companies, you've got NHS, you've got this and that and the other. It's loads of different styles of companies. It's almost just another kind of IoT tool in the kit bag. And it just depends what element of that you would like to be involved in. Do you want to get involved in the actual engineering of the drone? Do you like the kind of use cases and the technology and kind of how to sell them? Do you want to support it? It's really unlimited, essentially, in terms of what background you could come from and still get involved. But yeah, David, Adam, welcome your thoughts.
For me,
go Dave.
I say it's my hobby. I started in engineering in BT, and I've had a great career out of that, but my hobby kind of got mixed up with the business. And I mean, there's a question on there, can you make drones? Yes. You just basically get electronics and computer little chips, and you program them. Just Google it. Get on the internet and Google it. You'll find out how you can do it. But yeah, I got involved in it because when a company like BT wants to get into drones, and they start looking around the company saying, does anyone know anything about drones? I put my hand up. Go, Adam.
Yeah, I would probably just second everything that they said. So I mean, if you're interested in the software side of things from the engineering, there is an exciting amount going on in that space, with artificial intelligence, et cetera, that is going into these systems. Hardware, again, is a big component of drones, system engineering. But yeah, I come from a business background as well. And it's interesting because the sector is so new, it's very open, and there's still lots of things that we don't know about them that potentially could be new use cases for them. and the technology evolves every single year very quickly. So it's one of those careers that you can continue to kind of learn and grow in, and it really is just kind of what your interest is and where you kind of want to come at it.
Fantastic, thanks guys. So it sounds like there's lots of if you want to work in the field of drones, there are lots of different types of ways you can do that. So that's fantastic. So we've already heard a bit about the drones being used to transport things like medical products and tests, and also in environmental kind of bad environmental situations to try and help things. But one of the questions you've got here is, can drones help save lives? So are there other ways that drones can help to save lives?
Yeah. You want to take that, Dave?
Okay,
you want me to?
Quickly from us. So I suppose as part of some of the work that we're doing as a company, we're talking with organisations like the Maritime Coast Guard. So these are companies that are responsible for essentially saving lives in and around our seas. And they are actively looking for ways that they can use drones to help in those kind of scenarios. When someone's gone into the water, they've fallen off a cliffside, whatever that might look like, seconds count. And the ability for them to get a drone to scan out in an area and identify where someone is, and make the people that obviously then have to run and try and save that person know, and not waste 10 minutes, 5 minutes, half an hour looking for that person is critical, essentially. So there's a number of organizations across the world that are all looking at that one. And I think that's the kind of like often one of the most spoken about use cases, I suppose, in terms of that piece. But then broader than that, today you have fire services in the UK using drones to do first sort of when they get to site, to be able to see what's happening, to understand the risk to themselves, and obviously try and help the people that they're saving. So yeah, emergency services, anything that they're all looking at this aspect from what we see. Adam? Yeah,
like on the Coast Guard bit, they'll put a heat sensor on the drone, so then if you have someone who's in the water, they can detect for where that person is located, and you don't have a lot of time when someone enters the water. It is really a matter of minutes before that person might go under. So getting rapid assessment of where they might be located in the water, and then also they've been dropping life preserves from the drone as well. To that location, and ideally, hopefully, that person can swim and get to it. We're seeing, in light of COVID as well, you're starting to see COVID samples being flown by drones and medical delivery. So getting, whether it's like samples or even potentially a heart to another hospital very quickly, so that you don't have to go through rush hour traffic. You're starting to see use cases like that to save lives as well.
Lovely. Great. Thanks, guys. And another question that's come in is, how long can a drone stay in the air for?
What's your record, Mr. Wilkes?
What's the longest?
Oh, without crashing it. Oh, yeah. They all come down to the battery life. If I'm going to pick a prop up again, a drone like this has to lift its own weight with its power, so it has to create a lot of lift. Whereas some of the aeroplanes that we've got behind, they're a lot more efficient. You see that one that's there? Oh, your finger's going the wrong way. That white one, that triangular one, that one's actually a combination of a drone and an aeroplane. So basically, it takes off vertically and then transitions into horizontal flight. And when you're going forward, you use the wings for your lift, and it's sort of 80% more efficient than a drone. And that's basically why you go on holiday in an aeroplane as opposed to going in a drone. It's just the efficiencies, and the battery technology is getting better, and we're using different methods of powering them. People are looking at hydrogen fuel cells. Good old-fashioned petrol engines can keep them in the air for tens of hours. And there are some large drones that are actually put in atmosphere to actually do surveillance and things that can run for days in the air and go thousands and thousands of miles. So further and further every day.
Very good, thank you. had some questions around what kind of drones you might recommend as toys, or another question that's coming about what kind of drones would you recommend for a beginner, perhaps someone who hasn't flown a drone before and would like to have a go.
It's me again, isn't it?
Yeah. I'm sure you've got one behind you that you're going to pick up again.
There's lots of little tiny drones like this. They normally start about 20 or 30 pounds. They're really stable. They fly indoors. They're safe. They don't go fast. They've only got little tiny propellers. They'll not hurt you. And you can learn to fly around the house really simple. This is a Tello, and I would imagine that you may have seen them because they've got quite a lot of onboard compute. They've got lots of sensors on. They've got a camera. You can stream this to your phone. You can stream it. In the video that I filmed, you saw me flying around with some little tags, and this is all down to the compute on the drone, talking to a telephone or a laptop, and being able to track the tags. So this is a bit more expensive. It's about £100, and then when you go outside, there's lots of drones like this where you can fly outside. The main thing I'd say is, if you keep below 250 grams, you don't need loads of licenses and you don't need authority, etc. So keep them small, learn to fly, and then go big.
Talk about race drones, Wilkes.
All my race drones are up on the side. The race drones are just phenomenal. I'm really lucky that I've got a job that allows me to play with things like this. This is the latest and greatest drone. Thank you ever so much, Dave, for it. And you fly this with a pair of goggles. So what you actually get with this is the virtual reality experience of flying while being in it. You can fly around like Superman with this thing. It's phenomenal. Thanks, Dave.
That sounds very cool. We had our session yesterday was all around immersive media. So if any of you were listening into that, you can kind of hopefully see the connection there. We've had some questions about safety. So how can you ensure with new types of drones, how do you test them in a safe way? And also questions sort of related to that around when we have lots of drones in the air, how do we make sure that they don't get congested and they crash into each other? And is there anything you can do, for example, with cameras to help with that?
So I suppose in terms of the latter bit, I think drones are becoming incredibly intelligent themselves in terms of trying to make sure that they don't crash into things. I think when David was mentioning earlier about stable drones, I suppose, going back, some of them originally just chaotic to fly, start to become more balanced, more controlled, and then he was talking about all the sensors on the drones, and some of them becoming more and more intelligent in working out how to not crash into other things, to take away some of the problem from the pilot. But I think even that, though, when you've got kind of 10 or 100 or whatever it might be drones in the sky, that's all manageable. If knowing that people can handle that and drones themselves can handle it. The challenge is when in some of the use cases we've been talking about, whether it be deliveries and other things, where these drones are doing things for themselves, I suppose, how do you plan that? How do you make sure that these things don't accidentally crash into each other? How do you almost think about a drone in the way that, well, what about helicopters and commercial planes? And how do you make sure that the sky as a whole can talk to each other and is safe? And I think if you sort of go on the internet and search around what are called unmanned traffic management platforms, UTM platforms, if you look for terminology around beyond visual line of sight and automation and all these topics, there's a huge amount across the world going on in terms of, I suppose, what does good look like? What are the technologies required? How would we connect to drones? Whether that would be drone with cameras on the drones doing certain things, whether that be mobile networks telling people where things are, lots of different technologies. And all of this is in a quite early stage. Like, the rules haven't been defined yet. essentially for how this is going to happen. But part of what we're looking at is BT, I suppose, is what can we do to contribute towards that happening? What are the things that we can do to mean that drones know where other drones are, systems know where they are, and don't crash into each other? Like I said, it's fine if there's like 10 drones in the sky, but if you get into the thousands, that's quite a lot of things to make sure don't go wrong.
Great. That's great. Thanks, Dave. I've just got time for a couple of more quick questions. So lots of interest in your virtual reality drone, David. How do you actually control it? That was a question that's come in.
Okay, with one of these. This is a simple controller that allows you to fly it. It actually also comes with a sort of motion controller, which allows you to. It'll probably make you sick when you're using it. But yeah, on what Dave said, these things have got stereoscopic cameras on them on the bottom. They've got them on the front. Some of the more sophisticated and big ones have got them all round. And we're using technology and we're coding these things to actually recognize objects in the sky. So it's not just about using radar and using all sorts of detection. You can actually visually see things in the air. This is like I said, it's the latest and greatest drone. It's actually fitted with a receiver that listens out for full-size airplanes. So if a full-size airplane comes near you, it starts flashing up on the display to actually tell you to get out of the way. And that comes back to what Dave's just been talking about the UTMs, the traffic management systems, where we're going to make drones be subservient to full-size aircraft, because obviously a full-size aircraft's got a human being in it and you don't want them to have an accident. So basically, if the drone and the airplane know about each other, and if the drone keeps going for the airplane, then you can make the drone move out of the way. Or if the drone is really not going to take command and be told to move out of the way, you can make the airplane move out of the way as a last resort. But it's all down to, we need mechanisms and systems to allow everybody to know where everybody is.
That's brilliant. Thank you. I'm afraid we're just about out of time. Someone has just asked a question, can you code drones? And I think you've just answered that in your answer because you mentioned coding them. So yes, you can.
If any teachers are watching this, the DJI Tello, there's a fantastic online academy called Drone Blocks, and that teaches you how to program these things in Scratch, Python, Swift.
Brilliant.
You can charge them and everything.
Sorry, I'm going to have to cut you off there, Dave, because we are coming to the end of our time. So I want to say thank you to everyone for joining us. Big thank you to Dave, David and Adam for answering all of the questions so brilliantly. If you go back onto the Virtual British Science Week website, you'll see our activity pack, and there are some great activities there where you can code your own drone game, and you can have do some activities where you're more hands-on thinking about what makes something stay in the air. But thank you very much to our friends at West Suffolk College and STEMtastic for hosting us, and we'll see you tomorrow for our Health and Sports Science Day. Bye.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.